I believe, is one of Earth's wormholes. And it's an animation of a flight I made in 1970, and it's the most accurate ever made.
Scientists were surprised when an underwater drone entered the Bermuda Triangle and captured something that was not human. Could this strange discovery explain the vanishings of ships and aircraft? The triangle, long a place of mystery, is showing its secrets at last. But what does this mean for the future? Join us as we uncover the truth behind this mystery. The Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is not a place you can see on a map with clear lines and borders. It is an idea shaped by geography, history, fear, and imagination. It sits in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean, roughly marked by 3 points: Florida in the United States, the island of Bermuda, and Puerto Rico in the Caribbean. When these points are connected, they form a loose triangle. This shape has no official status, yet it has endured in popular culture for decades. It is not recognized by governments or scientific bodies, but it remains one of the most famous regions of the sea. Geographically, this triangle covers a vast stretch of ocean that has been traveled for centuries. Major shipping routes and busy air paths pass through it every day. Long before it became linked to mystery, this area was simply known as a challenging part of the Atlantic. Sailors respected it, pilots planned carefully around it, and weather watchers kept a close eye on it. The sea here is deep, wide, and powerful, shaped by natural forces that can turn calm waters into danger with little warning. One of the most striking features of this region is the Puerto Rico Trench. It is the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean, reaching nearly 28,000 feet below the surface. This immense depth creates steep underwater slopes and complex ocean conditions. Nearby, the Gulf Stream flows like a fast-moving river within the ocean. It is a strong and warm current that can quickly carry ships off course and scatter wreckage far from where an accident first happened. Above the water, the weather can change suddenly. Storms form quickly, winds rise without warning, and waves grow tall and violent. These natural conditions alone are enough to explain why the area has always been risky. Despite these realities, the Bermuda Triangle did not begin as a legend. It became one slowly, through a series of stories that connected unrelated events into a single narrative. The earliest public hint of something unusual appeared in the middle of the 20th century. In September of 1950, an article written by Edward Van Winkle Jones appeared in American newspapers through the Associated Press. The article spoke about several ships and planes that had been lost in the general Bermuda area. It did not claim anything supernatural, but it planted a seed. Readers began to see a pattern where none had been formally defined. 2 years later, a short article published in Fate magazine gave that seed a shape. Written by George Dex Sand, it described a watery triangle roughly bounded by Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. This was the first time the familiar triangular idea was clearly laid out. Sand listed several disappearances that had occurred since the Second World War. These included the loss of a tramp steamer called Sandra, the disappearance of Flight 19 during a Navy training mission, the vanishing of the passenger plane Star Tiger, the loss of a small fishing skiff with 3 men aboard, another aircraft flying from Puerto Rico to Miami, and later the disappearance of Star Ariel. Each event had its circumstances, but when placed side by side, they seemed to suggest something strange. As time passed, these stories were retold and expanded. Flight 19, in particular, gained attention years later when it was discussed again in a military magazine. Details about confusion during the flight captured the public imagination. Soon after, in the early 1960s, writer Vincent Gaddis published an article in Argosy magazine that changed everything. He gave the region a name that would last. By calling it the Deadly Bermuda Triangle, he turned scattered incidents into a single mystery. He suggested that these events were not random, but part of a long pattern reaching back many decades. Gaddis later expanded his ideas into a book, and other writers followed. Some stayed close to his approach, while others added dramatic and supernatural elements. Books with titles that spoke of lost souls, invisible forces, and devilish seas filled bookstores. Each new version stretched the story further. Some writers kept the triangle small. Others expanded it greatly, sometimes claiming it reached far beyond the Atlantic and even toward distant coasts. Because of this, the size of the triangle varied widely depending on who was telling the story. Whether an accident belonged to the triangle often depended more on the author than on geography. As these stories grew, the original facts became harder to separate from interpretation. The triangle's boundaries shifted. Its dangers were exaggerated. Natural explanations were often pushed aside in favor of mystery. Yet, through all of this, one important truth remained unchanged. No official organization ever declared the Bermuda Triangle a distinct hazard zone. It does not appear on nautical charts as a special danger. The United States Board on Geographic Names does not recognize it as a real place. Pilots and sailors are not warned about it as something different from any other busy and sometimes dangerous part of the ocean. And yet, as the stories grew louder, another question quietly waited beneath the waves. If the triangle is only a story, what happens when modern eyes look deep into its waters for the first time? Notable incidents that fueled the legend. Long before the Bermuda Triangle became a household name, a series of losses quietly settled into history. Ships failed to arrive, aircrafts vanished mid-journey, crews were never seen again. Each event stood alone at first, tragic but explainable within the dangers of sea and sky. Over time, however, these incidents were gathered together, retold, and reshaped. What had once been separate stories slowly blended into a single legend. The power of the Bermuda Triangle grew not from one moment, but from many disappearances that felt unfinished. One of the earliest losses later pulled into the legend was the sail training ship HMS Atalanta. She left Bermuda for England at the end of January in the year 1880. On board were her full crew, most of them young trainees still learning life at sea. She never reached her destination. Weeks later, powerful storms were known to have crossed her route. At the time, the world followed the search closely. The loss was painful, but not mysterious to those who understood the dangers of sailing and the inexperience of her crew. Decades later, her story was pulled into Bermuda Triangle lore. That claim did not survive careful research. Her fate, while tragic, fit the known risks of weather and training ships of that era. Another ship that would later shape the legend was the USS Cyclops. She was a massive United States Navy cargo ship built to carry heavy loads. In early March of 1918, she left the island of Barbados carrying manganese ore. One of her engines was already out of action. After that departure, more than 300 crew members were lost, making it the greatest non-combat loss in United States Navy history. No wreckage was ever conclusively found. Over time, many theories emerged. Some pointed to storms, others to capsizing, and some to wartime enemy action. What stood out most was the lack of evidence. Later losses of her sister ships, Proteus and Nereus, during the Second World War added weight to one explanation. All three had carried very heavy metallic cargo. Structural failure due to overloading remains the most likely cause. Still, the silence left behind by Cyclops allowed imagination to move in. In the early 1920s, another ship added to the growing sense of unease. The Carroll A. Deering was a 5-masted schooner found hard aground near Cape Hatteras at the end of January 1921. She was intact but completely abandoned. Her crew was gone. An investigation followed, drawing national attention. Many possibilities were explored, including piracy, sabotage, and criminal activity. All were eventually ruled out. No clear answer was found. The ship itself was not lost, but the absence of her crew left a gap that would later be filled by speculation. Then came the event that would become the heart of the Bermuda Triangle legend. In December of 1945, Flight 19 took off from Florida on a routine United States Navy training mission. 5 torpedo bombers flew east, then north, then were meant to return home. They never did. Radio messages revealed confusion among the pilots. They believed their instruments were unreliable. Directions no longer made sense to them. Navy investigators later concluded that navigational error led the aircraft off course until they ran out of fuel. As night fell and weather worsened, the planes likely ditched into the ocean. The search for Flight 19 added another layer of tragedy. A rescue aircraft sent to find the missing planes also disappeared. A tanker off the Florida coast reported seeing an explosion and an oil slick. The weather was turning stormy. That search plane type had a known history of fuel vapor explosions, especially when heavily loaded. Still, the loss of both the training flight and a rescue crew created a powerful story. What mattered most was what could not be proven. No wreckage was clearly identified. No final moment was recorded. The unanswered questions lingered. Just a few years later, In January of 1948, Star Tiger disappeared while flying from the Azores to Bermuda. 1 year later, Star Ariel vanished while flying from Bermuda to Jamaica. Both were operated by British South American Airways. Both aircraft were flying at the very edge of their operational range. These flights depended on careful navigation and stable conditions. Even a small fault could prevent them from reaching land. No trace of either aircraft was found. Their losses fed early mystery narratives and strengthened the belief that something unseen lurked over the Atlantic. In December of 1948, another aircraft disappeared. A Douglas DC-3 flying from Puerto Rico to Miami vanished with all 32 people on board. Once again, no wreckage was ever located. Investigators later stated that there was not enough information to determine the cause. The lack of evidence did not mean a lack of explanation. It simply meant the answers were lost with the aircraft. Over time, this silence was interpreted not as limitation, but as mystery. As the years passed, stories continued to grow. In September of 1955, a pleasure yacht was found drifting south of Bermuda. The vessel was intact, but the crew was gone. Popular stories claimed the yacht survived several hurricanes, while the crew vanished without warning. A closer look showed a different picture. The yacht had been securely moored before a hurricane approached. Strong seas broke the moorings, and the vessel was carried out to sea. The disappearance of the crew occurred before the storm fully passed through the area. Once again, natural forces offered explanations, but dramatic retellings took hold. In August of 1963, 2 United States Air Force tanker aircraft collided during flight training west of Bermuda and crashed into the Atlantic. Some writers later claimed the debris was found in widely separated locations, suggesting strange movement or impossible events. Official investigation showed otherwise. What appeared to be a second crash site was nothing more than seaweed and driftwood tangled around an old buoy. The truth was far less dramatic than the myth that followed. That same year, the Marine Sulphur Queen disappeared. She was a tanker carrying molten sulfur. After leaving port, she vanished with her crew. Later investigations found evidence that suggested structural problems and dangerous cargo conditions. Still, her loss was often described as sudden and unexplained. The absence of clear wreckage allowed her story to slide easily into the growing legend. Over time, writers gathered these incidents and arranged them like pieces of a puzzle. The gaps between them were filled with mystery. But while the past was filled with uncertainty, the future brought new tools and new eyes beneath the waves. And what those tools would reveal would challenge the stories in ways no one expected. Scientific scrutiny and criticism of the myth. As the stories of the Bermuda Triangle grew louder, a quieter voice began to rise in response. This voice did not speak of mystery or fear. It spoke of records, weather reports, ship logs, and careful checking. Scientists, researchers, and historians began to look closely at the claims that surrounded the triangle. When they did, something important happened. The shadows started to fade. One of the most important figures in this shift was Larry Kusha. He was not a sailor or a pilot. He was a librarian and a careful researcher. In the mid-1970s, he published a book called The Bermuda Triangle Mystery Solved. Instead of retelling dramatic stories, he returned to original sources. He read old newspapers. He examined official reports. He compared claims made in popular books with what witnesses and investigators had said at the time. What Kusha found was not hidden forces or strange powers. He found errors. He found exaggerations. In some cases, he found stories that had been told so many times that they no longer resembled the truth. Some incidents described as mysterious had clear explanations that were simply ignored. Others were placed inside the triangle even though they happened far outside it. Sometimes ships or planes reported as missing were later found, but their return was never mentioned. Over time, these small mistakes stacked on top of one another. Kusha showed that when facts were carefully checked, many famous mysteries quietly disappeared. One sailor whose disappearance had been described as strange was later shown to have clear evidence explaining what happened. Another ship said to have vanished in the Atlantic was lost in the Pacific Ocean. These details mattered. They revealed how easily a story could change when accuracy was not the main goal. His conclusion was calm and firm. The number of ships and aircraft lost in the Bermuda Triangle area was not greater than in other busy parts of the ocean. The Atlantic is heavily traveled. With that traffic comes risk. Storms, navigation mistakes, and mechanical problems happen everywhere. When these factors were considered, the triangle no longer stood out. Around the same time, official organizations made their positions clear. The United States Coast Guard, the United States Navy, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration all rejected supernatural explanations. Their work placed responsibility on natural forces and human decisions. They explained that hurricanes, sudden weather changes caused by the Gulf Stream, and shallow waters were enough to explain accidents in the region. They also noted that similar conditions exist in many other parts of the world. Statistics supported this view. When experts accounted for how many ships and planes pass through the area each year, the rate of accidents matched other major sea and air corridors. The triangle did not show higher danger when measured fairly. It simply appeared more dangerous because it had been talked about more. Insurance companies reached the same conclusion. When asked to review shipping losses in the region, marine insurers found no unusual pattern. Ships passing through the area were not charged higher rates. This decision was based on data, not belief. The records showed that the triangle was not uniquely dangerous. Government records backed this up as well. Coast Guard files contained detailed documentation that contradicted many popular claims. In one well-known case, a tanker explosion was described in books as a total mystery where all bodies vanished. In reality, investigators recovered wreckage and several crew members. The sinking also occurred far from the triangle's commonly described boundaries. These facts were available, but they were not as exciting as the myth. Television programs that examined the subject critically reached the same results. When producers and scientists returned to original sources, the mystery often vanished. They showed that ships and planes behaved in the triangle exactly as they did everywhere else. There was no special force at work. The questions themselves were built on misunderstandings. Researchers who studied belief and psychology offered another explanation. Mysteries sell. Stories about the unknown attract attention. Books, documentaries, and television specials that support strange ideas are easier to market than careful research. This created a strong bias. Sensational material spread widely, while skeptical work received less attention. Over time, the louder voices shaped public opinion. Scientific investigators pointed out that losing an aircraft or ship at sea is not unusual. The ocean is vast. Search areas are enormous. Even with modern tools, wreckage can be difficult to find. When something is not found, that absence does not mean the cause was strange. It simply means the evidence was lost to depth, distance, or time. Environmental science played a key role in explaining many events. Hurricanes can rise quickly and alter course without warning. The Gulf Stream can push debris far from an accident site, making searches difficult. Shallow reefs and deep trenches create complex underwater landscapes. None of this is mysterious. It is nature behaving as it always has. Official geographic authorities also made their position clear. The Bermuda Triangle does not appear on official maps as a recognized location. It has no defined borders accepted by science or navigation. Yet, even as science spoke clearly, fascination remained. People still wondered what the sea might be hiding beneath its surface. Natural and scientific explanations. As the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle slowly met the calm voice of science, attention shifted away from stories and toward the forces of nature itself. What experts found was not a single cause, but a combination of powerful and well-known elements. These forces do not work alone. They overlap, interact, and sometimes strike at the same moment. When they do, they can overwhelm ships and aircraft, especially in times before modern technology. What once felt unexplainable began to make sense. One of the most important natural forces in this region is the Gulf Stream. This powerful ocean current flows from the Gulf of Mexico through the narrow waters near Florida and into the open Atlantic. It moves like a river inside the sea. Floating objects caught in it can be carried far from their original location. Debris from an accident may drift hundreds or even thousands of miles away. This makes search efforts extremely difficult. When wreckage is not found where expected, it creates confusion and fear. In truth, the current is simply doing what it has always done. Weather is another major factor. The Bermuda Triangle lies in a region where conditions can change very quickly. Sudden storms, strong squalls, and violent winds can appear with little warning. Before weather satellites existed, ships and planes had almost no way to see these dangers coming. Crews often sailed straight into storms without knowing what lay ahead. Hurricanes form in warm tropical waters and have passed through this region for centuries. They bring towering waves, intense rain, and powerful winds. Many historical losses linked to the triangle occurred during hurricane season, even if that detail was later ignored in dramatic retellings. Air movement also plays a role. In some cases, sudden downdrafts of cold air can strike the ocean surface with great force. These events create explosive winds that spread outward and can knock a vessel flat or tear sails apart. When such conditions occur during unstable weather, the danger increases sharply. Ships caught in these moments may have no time to respond. Another explanation that has drawn attention is methane hydrates. These are crystalline forms of natural gas trapped beneath the ocean floor. In theory, if these deposits were disturbed, large amounts of gas could be released into the water. This would reduce water density and weaken buoyancy, causing a vessel to sink quickly. Laboratory experiments have shown that bubbles can sink small model ships under controlled conditions. Because of this, methane has been considered a possible cause of sudden sinkings. However, this explanation has limits. While large methane hydrate fields exist in many parts of the world, including areas off the southeastern coast of the United States, there is no evidence that massive gas releases have occurred in the Bermuda Triangle in many thousands of years. Scientists continue to study methane hydrates, but they do not see them as a current or frequent danger in this region. This idea remains possible in theory, but it is not supported as a common cause of past disappearances. Magnetism has also played a role in shaping the legend. The area lies near a place where magnetic north and true north align. This is known as an agonic line. For centuries, navigators understood that compasses do not always point to the true north. They must be adjusted based on location. Before modern navigation tools, this required skill and careful calculation. When inexperienced or confused crews failed to account for magnetic variation, they could drift far off course. To someone unfamiliar with navigation, a compass behaving differently across a wide area might appear strange. In reality, this is normal. The Earth's magnetic field changes gradually across the globe. There is nothing sudden or mysterious about it. But misunderstanding this behavior has led some to believe that compasses fail in the triangle when they are simply responding to natural variation. Human error sits quietly at the center of many incidents. Navigation mistakes, poor decisions, and overconfidence have always been part of travel by sea and air. Before satellites and modern instruments, crews relied on maps, stars, compasses, and estimates. A small error could grow over time, especially during long journeys. Weather forecasts were limited. Communication was slow or non-existent. When something went wrong, help might be far away. In many cases, vessels sailed into storms because captains believed they could outrun or withstand them. Pilots sometimes misjudged distance or fuel needs. These mistakes were not rare, and they were not unique to the Bermuda Triangle. They happened everywhere. But when they occurred in this already famous region, they were remembered differently. Technology has changed this picture. Satellite navigation now shows exact position at all times. Weather systems are tracked from space. Emergency signals can be sent instantly. Because of these advances, modern disappearances without explanation are extremely rare. This alone shows that the triangle was never driven by unknown forces. It was shaped by limits that no longer exist. Despite strong scientific explanations, some writers continue to offer supernatural ideas. Stories of lost civilizations, parallel worlds, and flying objects captured attention. The submerged rock formation near Bimini was described by some as a road or wall left behind by a vanished city. In reality, it is a natural formation. Geological studies show it was shaped by natural processes, not human design. Other theories suggested time warps or gateways to another universe. Some blamed objects from the sky. These ideas were never supported by evidence. They relied on imagination rather than measurement. Still, they spread widely because they were exciting and easy to remember. Compass myths also continued to circulate. Claims of strange magnetic forces were repeated, even though no unusual anomalies were ever found in the area. The science of magnetism remained clear and unchanged. Compasses behaved as expected. The confusion existed not in the instruments, but in how their behavior was understood. The Gulf Stream remained one of the strongest explanations. Its speed is enough to move objects far from reported positions in a short time. A plane that lands on water or a ship that loses power can be carried away quickly. When search teams arrive later, they may find nothing. This absence can feel mysterious, but it is the natural result of a fast-moving current in a vast ocean. Even with answers in hand, curiosity remained. Because while science explains how things happen, the sea still holds images and shapes beneath its surface that invite wonder. The underwater drone mission. The ocean has always been a place of mystery. Its vastness, its darkness, and its ever-changing currents make it difficult to explore. The Bermuda Triangle, with its long history of disappearances, has drawn particular attention from those curious about what lies beneath the waves. Modern technology, however, allows us to descend into these depths in ways that previous generations could only imagine. Remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, along with autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, are at the forefront of this exploration. These machines are carefully designed to withstand enormous pressures, navigate rugged terrain, and send back detailed data from areas humans cannot reach. An underwater drone mission in the Triangle begins long before the camera even touches the water. Scientists plan their route based on oceanographic charts, sonar mapping, and known geological features. The vehicles are equipped with high-resolution cameras, sonar systems, lights, and sensors that measure temperature, salinity, and chemical composition. Some drones can reach depths approaching 28,000 feet, the depth of the Puerto Rico Trench, capturing images and readings in real time. This precision allows researchers to study the seafloor with incredible detail, revealing features invisible from the surface. Once the drone descends, the world below transforms. The sun's light fades within a few hundred feet, replaced by an otherworldly glow from the vehicle's lights. The seafloor stretches into rolling ridges, towering cliffs, and deep canyons carved over millions of years. Sand, silt, and sediments form a soft, shifting carpet over rocks and occasional coral formations. Strong currents weave through these features, moving debris and influencing the distribution of life. Even small slopes can create dramatic shadows that, when viewed out of context, can appear strange or unnatural. The most captivating part of underwater drone footage is often life itself. Deep-sea creatures, many of which have never been seen by human eyes, drift or crawl across the ocean floor. Some glow faintly with bioluminescence. Others have unusual shapes that appear alien to those accustomed to land animals. These forms, however, are entirely natural. Scientists use acoustic sensors to record the clicks, pulses, and calls of marine life, building a map of biodiversity in addition to the physical landscape. Shipwrecks occasionally appear in drone footage, often long forgotten or partially buried. While these can spark excitement, they are simply reminders of human presence and history in the vast ocean. Even in the Bermuda Triangle, drones find nothing supernatural. No evidence of mysterious structures, unknown machinery, or non-human phenomena appears in the verified mission logs. Footage claiming unusual objects is often unverified, misinterpreted, or digitally altered. What the drones do record are incredible realities: the rugged topography, the living ecosystems, and the immense moving currents. Every detail is captured, measured, and cataloged, providing a clear picture of a world that is harsh, complex, and fascinating in its own right. Scientific exploration also explains why misinterpretations happen. Shadows on the seafloor, rare creatures, shifting sediments, and strong currents can all appear strange to untrained eyes. A rock formation can look like a wall, a sunken vessel like a strange shape, or a glowing creature like something unknown. Context is critical. Scientists compare data over time, cross-referencing sonar, video, and chemical readings to distinguish between natural phenomena and human artifacts. By the end of a typical drone mission, the ocean has revealed both its secrets and its beauty. The Bermuda Triangle does not harbor monsters or magical forces. Instead, it offers a complex and dynamic environment where geology, currents, and life interact in ways that are both challenging and breathtaking. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.